Hi everyone, welcome, I'm Pam. This video is about regrets that I have in my life. And I didn't script it out. I didn't do much of anything except I thought about this a lot and what I want to say. And I did write some things down. I find that when I script out videos and I write what I want to say, because, a lot of these videos, they have so many working parts to them. And some of it I read from a monitor. It just feels fake, and that's the last thing that I want for my channel, is to be fake. So this is not scripted. I'm not reading a monitor, trying to look at that white little dot instead of myself in front of me. And what I'm saying in this video, if you haven't seen my other video that I posted called My Abusive Childhood, then some of the things that I say, they'll make sense. And actually, you don't have to see the other video, but I would highly recommend it, the video, My Abusive Childhood. So I think the biggest regret that I have in my life, and I'm 64 years old. I've been in recovery for 8 years. And I went into recovery. I didn't know I needed recovery until I realized that I was abusing alcohol to dull this consistent anxious feeling that I had. It was like a constant lower flow of anxiety. And when I had a glass of wine or two or three, that went away. So I realized after I retired 10 years ago, and my daughter moved to Chicago for work, so I figured I'm not staying around here, so I moved to Florida. And I found out that Florida is a really great place to find recovery. I never would have thought that Fort Myers Beach, the town of Fort Myers Beach, was a great place for recovery, but I found that out because when I moved, I had so much free time and I had more time to think about things that I ended up finding my bottom in Florida. So I've been in recovery for 8 years. I've been sober for 8 years. And I found out that alcohol was the least of my problems. But it was the one thing that I had to delete from my life in order to recover, in order to get a better feel for my self-worth, which I was not taught I had any when I was growing up. And again, that's all in the video called My Abusive Childhood. And no, I'm not using this to bait you to go watch that video. I'm just letting you know that I have explained this in more detail. So my biggest regret is not getting into recovery sooner. Growing up, I had two parents who were very toxic. They were very immature, and their relationship was shit. And their relationship with their daughter was not good either. And there goes my power. I need to power up my laptop. Sorry. See, I didn't really prepare. I prepared in thought, but that was it. Okay. And the way I was treated when I was a kid was, well, my father referred to me as a CUNT on several occasions, and that's what I thought I was. I had heard that word on the school bus to and from high school, and it usually came from the back of the bus from this girl who was, she was very mouthy, and she was she was gregarious, but not in a good way. She was just really, really loud. And she would often use that C word, and she never used it in a nice way. It was always because she was very angry and she was making fun of someone. So I heard that my father used that word with me, and I thought, oh boy, I am not a good person. So I came out of my childhood not with, I made mistakes, but I was a mistake. That was the unconscious thought that I had of myself, that I was a mistake. And I learned a lot of shame from that house. and growing up with those two people. And it wasn't like I felt shame, I was shame. So I was a mistake, and I was the definition of the word shame. And I learned all this in recovery, and I've been learning about this, and I learned more and more and more as the days, the weeks, the months, and the years go on. So I didn't enter recovery till I was, let's see, 56. I was 56 years old. And, through all that, I did have a successful career in education, and I retired after 30 years. I went into education right after college. I and But that career was dotted with it was dotted with a lot of emotional pain, a lot of emotional pain. Um, that was unnecessary. And I really think that, and I will use the word higher power. Some of you might use the word God or universe or spirit, Holy Spirit, source, intuition, gut feeling, inner being, universal spirit. There's so many words for this, but that, the God of my understanding was desperately trying to get me into recovery for many, many years. And I didn't think I needed it. And it wasn't until I actually went, it was my first week in a 12-step program that I finally learned that the things that had happened to me when I was growing up, that was considered abuse. I never considered it abuse. I just thought, my parents knew that I was bad to the core, and I was not bad in a mean girl way, but just like worthless kind of. And like I said before, I was a mistake, and I never should have been born, and they were just tolerating me. So I missed the cues that I was getting from my environment that I needed to start getting better, that I needed recovery. I needed to get into something, a mental health, the hospital and the mental health ward, the mental health um, institution or something. And I had gone to therapists for most of my life before I entered into a 12-step program. And I never shared the fact that alcohol made me feel better. I never shared that because I wasn't an alcoholic. I I didn't think I was. I had a good job. I was making great money. I was getting up for work every day. And I think they call that a functional alcoholic. Um, but, emotionally, I was not functioning at all. I mean, I had some really good days, I had some happy days, and I wasn't depressed. I was anxious. Like that low level anxiety never left my body, ever, until I put alcohol in it. Um, and if you're not the kind of person who abuses alcohol, and you know this, I knew inside that I was doing it. I knew. But if you're not, please keep listening to this message, because not all people who need recovery are alcoholics. There are lots of people out there who are not alcoholics or drug addicts, and they're still dealing with the pain from an abusive childhood and toxic, immature parents. So if I had listened to my gut, I would have gotten help sooner, but I didn't. That's the biggest regret, because that is my biggest regret, because the other regrets I have from my life stem from me not getting into recovery way back when I was in my mid 20s. I waited till I was in my mid 50s, and I do regret that. Um, and because of that, I was married and divorced 3 times to men I did not love. I did not know how to love them. Um, I did have a daughter with my first husband, and I do not regret that. Can't say enough about my daughter. Um, and I have a granddaughter, and we are expecting our second. She is expecting her second daughter with her wonderful husband. I put her through hell at times. At times I was a really, really loving, good mom, and at times I was a fucking shitty mom to her. Um, so that stuff wouldn't have happened if I got into recovery sooner. I just made some notes. Um, I thought I had to be married, and I regret the marriages because I'm realizing after being single and on my own for 8 years that, and I needed, and I still need this time for just me, um, and my dog, and my cats if I get them, just for me. And if I continue this way, I am fine with that. Um, I'm not finding out I'm not really a relationship kind of woman. Um, I'm heterosexual, and I I honestly don't even know if I don't think I ever loved any of my boyfriends or husbands. Um, there was one man that I know that I did love, still do. Um, but it was impossible. It was impossible for me to love anyone because I didn't love myself. And when I entered recovery, I started to learn the good things about me and that I am not worthless and I'm not a mistake. And I don't have to keep looking at that shame that I felt for so long. Um, and I can learn to love people. Yeah. So that's a good thing. Um, I regret the ways I treated some of my friends, my high school friends. Again, if I, now, when I was in high school, I regret that only to a certain point. I can't take responsibility for that because I was only in my teen. I was a teenager and I was still under the roof of my parents and under their guidance and under their their authority. So they called the shots pretty much. And even when I went into college, I lived at home for those 4 years, so they were still calling the shots, paying for college, most of it. Um, One thing that I do often that I need to do to help myself recover even more is what would I have said to them when they were engaging in their um, physically abusive, emotionally abusive, spiritually abusive, physically abusive behavior to me in no, we called it junior high then, junior high and high school. What would I have said? What would I tell my younger self today? And I role play this in my head, especially when I'm driving. My father would look at me on several occasions, and out of the blue, he would say, Pamela, upstairs, get upstairs. And I'd know what was coming. And my mother was always home. And I would cry to her and say, do I have to go upstairs? And she would say, your father has to do this, honey. Your father, and I remember one time I was, and I believe this is in one of my videos, so if you've seen it, forgive me if I'm going to go over it again. He said it, and I went in the bathroom, and I pretended I had to go to the bathroom. I was trying to stall, and I was sitting on the toilet. My mother was sitting at the side of the tub, and she grabbed my arm, and she was rubbing my arm, and she said, Pamela, your father has to do this. She's something that he has to do. And I didn't realize it. She was an enabler. So I think, what would I say today if I was in that situation? And when he said, Pamela, get upstairs, I would say, no fucking way am I going upstairs with you. And you can't do that to me anymore. And I'd say to my mother, and you're a fucking enabler. And you're both weak immature, abusive, toxic, dysfunctional fucking assholes. Thank you. Thank you. And do I regret not saying that? I kind of regret that I can't go back and say it. But even the word regret in that instance doesn't really make sense. I know that. But I didn't stick up for myself back then. I couldn't be my own warrior. I couldn't be my own, what's the word? I don't know the word. My own savior. I couldn't do that then because I was so young. I was 14, 15, 16, 17 years old when I was going through all that. And what they said was law. So, and I don't, in movies, I see kids talk back to their parents like that. No fucking way am I going upstairs and you lay another fucking hand on me. I see that, and I often say to myself, God, I wish I could have done that. So in a way, I do regret I didn't know more. But then again, it wasn't back then. It wasn't my fault. I couldn't help myself then. I can help myself today. And my mother is still alive, and sometimes she still pulls, not the physical abuse, of course, anymore, but sometimes she still pulls the same emotional bullshit, and I will respectfully call her on it and say, when you said that, that it was disrespectful what you said, and I'm hoping that you don't say it again. And she does apologize. Let's see. So I regret not getting into recovery way sooner, like 30 years sooner than I did. I regret my marriages, marrying men that I did not love. I regret the things that I did to my daughter because I was sick, because I chose not to go into recovery when I should have. Let's see, this probably might be a two-parter, and this is already 17 minutes long, so I am going to stop this video because the major point I wanted to get across was that I really, really wished I'd gotten into recovery sooner. And if you think that there's something amiss with your emotional life, mental life, for any reason, somehow seek help. Seek help. And if the way you seek help isn't the right way, then once you put yourself out there and seek the help, you will be guided to the right source of help for you. So, and I noticed that I've been getting a few more subscribers, but people aren't liking my video. I don't understand YouTube and the analytics of it, so maybe you are and I'm not seeing it. But I would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button and then subscribe. So thank you to my subscribers that are already out there. I really appreciate you. And please, if you have any comments or if you can relate to anything that I've said, I would love to read them. So thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.